Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of interviews that were translated for patch 5.4. This is coming right off Twitch, so apologies to my Twitch chat that I won't be paying attention to you for the duration of this, but there's a lot of stuff here. There's usually rounds of like a bunch of different Japanese media who all release interviews at the same time, and then we get a summary, whether it be through a live blog over in Japan or which is what was translated here, or a translation of that blog that was done over in Japan. So thank you to the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord for these translations, but always be prepared. They have a warning right here at the top. Always treat information from summary sites with caution. We're not sure 100% to the accuracy of those, so please keep that in mind. That being said, I've already read through this, and well, there's some things more or less I'm like, okay, and then all right, that's fine. Let's get through it. So the first few questions that they summarize are just about the dungeon, about Matoya's Relic, and what it means story-wise. They don't go too in depth. They just mean that it's from Matoya's earlier portion of her life. We'd assume that means the Matoya on the source, but of course, the editor's note here says that they're not exactly sure whether that means a younger Y'shtola or our actual Matoya, who, since we're back on the source, will very likely be the Matoya we refer to from now on. So it says even here that we need to enlist the help of Matoya. So again, the source's Matoya is almost certainly going to be what's being referred to here. But also, this is going to be our first dungeon in a while that's not a linear path. Apparently, it's going to be a little more like Hawk Manor, where you're going to be going to a location, then backtracking to go to another location, then backtracking to go to another location. So if you're a fan of Hawk Manor and you wish we had more dungeons like that in Final Fantasy XIV, then that's what you're going to get with Matoya's Relic. Other than that, it should be the same expected experience for a dungeon. I wouldn't expect it to be anything too different. And they also like to make note that Reen will not be a trust member for this dungeon because she's not on the source, so they don't have her there. Now they go into Eden's Promise, which was a little interesting, and I'm not going to take all of this at face value because some of it is like, it goes against a lot of my predictions, but we'll see. So it says that because it's after Reen and Thancred are separated, it requires patch 5.3's main scenario in order to enter. The story arc is going to be mostly revolving around Gaia and why she is the Priestess of Darkness and what the Idol of Darkness actually is. I mean, that's what we expected. I don't see anyone who expected to take some turn in a different direction, so that's just confirmation of that. The story will be quite long, be quite dense, and the big thing is ahead of time, you probably won't know who it is your actual villain is going to be, or at least Yoshida thinks so. I'm not 100% convinced of that, Yoshida. I feel like you've got some Final Fantasy VIII references up your sleeve, especially with some of the things we've seen from Gaia in regards to what her power is capable of. That being said, maybe this time it will be opponents the Warrior of Light has never fought before. That's like that clever thing he does. Maybe. Or maybe it'll be exactly who we think it'll be. Given that Eden's place in Final Fantasy VIII and what it is and how Gaia's character has developed so far. We'll find out who the first two bosses are in the trailer in the upcoming live letter, but the third and fourth boss are going to be kept a secret. Now, if we ever go back to the first, they said, will we be able to meet Reen and Gaia? And Yoshida says, who knows? I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen in the future. So this was actually my favorite part of this translation. So they make mention how Normal and Savage are going to be implemented on the same day, but that they've received a lot of feedback that that's not really working anymore. That Savage should probably be delayed by a period of time, whether it be a week or two. They said it's too late to do that now, but that they're definitely going to be looking towards that in the future. Now, obviously, for expansion launch, we're used to a 2-week delay for Normal and then a 2-week delay for Savage. So it would really be 6.2 or 6.4 where we would see any sort of change to this incorporated, but I'm grateful for that as a content creator. I really hate having to miss all the new story and all the new features and updates just because I have to rush headlong into Savage because that is my highest interest content on any given patch. So I would very much be in favor of a delayed schedule, even if it's just by 1 week and not necessarily the 2 that we've become accustomed to in the beginning of the expansion patch cycles with Normal and Savage. Other than that, all the drops will be the same, crafted equipment, everything will be the usual. So just please enjoy it. Now for job adjustments, Monk's going to be getting the biggest adjustments. We should learn more about that in the live letter as well. And my cat has just thrown my door wide open in the middle of a recording because that's what he likes to do in the morning. And my girlfriend's trying to work, so it's never great when I have to do that, as I tend to have to do is reach up and close the damn door. Aloha, we live in an apartment. I can't destroy the door. I can't get a different door. You have to stop opening the door. Anyway, on that note, Grease Lightning will be a trait. This is the same thing they've been saying for a while now. There's nothing really new here in terms of information. They also make mention that Samurai was looking a little strong and Dragoon was a little underwhelming, so we might see a few adjustments there. They also got some feedback about how Astro is a bit easier to play than Scholar, but they didn't really provide any additional comment. So we may see some slight Samurai nerfs and or just adjustments to how it accesses its power, and Dragoon will likely see a few number buffs based on the underwhelming factor that is stated right here, but they don't say anything for absolute certain in regards to those, so please take that with a grain of salt. For Unreal, they said they won't tell us what Primal will be next, but that Black Mage LB3 will see its use after a long time. So that rules out Ifrit. Because if you Black Mage LB3 Ifrit, you're dead. So that rules him out. It was pretty popular on Titan with his 2 ads in the later phase, so that's entirely a possibility. Thinking of the other ones, Garuda, I think maybe early on people did it on Plumes, but I don't really recall. They're so weak, I don't think anyone ever really LB3'd them. Looking through the rest, Leviathan. Yeah, Leviathan, it was pretty popular to Meteor because you could hit both the head, the tail, the spumes, and if you did it right, you could actually hit the Sahagins as well. So that's another one. So there's a few possibilities with Black Mage LB3. I still think it's going to be Titan. I think it's reasonable enough. That's not a hint that's too particular, but could also be Mogulmog. No. Anyway. There will be more rewards this time, but they're going to add to the ones we already have. So they're not going to be removing rewards seasonally. That was a question we had way back when. And also they're going to be adding a recruitment function to have people say if they've cleared Unreal or not. So that way it's easier to recruit people for repeat clears. Going to the Bozjan Southern Front, they said that the Southern Bozjan Front has a much higher completion rate than Onimos, to no one's surprise, really. 2 more major updates to this content is planned. Obviously, we have the Delubrum Reginae, which is next. They talk about that a little bit later in the overview. And there will be one more major thing after that. So in the 5.5x series, more importantly, we now know what kind of content that is going to be. It is going to be an open world type content, similar to the Bozjan Southern Front, one would hope. Now, they've said that they didn't want to do the same thing over and over again when it came to this Relic step, so it probably will not be a simple extension of what the Southern Front was. It will probably be some sort of take in a different direction or in a different location, or with a different progression system in mind, or at least a different way of approaching the continuation of our resistance ranks going up. I'd assume they wouldn't abandon lost actions or resistance rank altogether, but that they have been very clear they just don't want to repeat like they did with Eureka over and over and over again with the same thing. One big thing they want to tackle is the problem where people get to rank 15 and they're like, all right, I guess I'll just wait on Castrum. I don't really know what else to do. So look to a little more activities towards your max rank in there. As for the 1v1 duel problem, they said they've got some other things to adjust first, but that they'll definitely address people's concerns with qualifying into the 1v1. So definitely look forward to that if you haven't gotten those done yet. Now, as for the Delubrum Reginae itself, there's a normal mode, which is 24 people, and there's a savage mode that is 48 people. Normal mode won't be that difficult. In fact, it doesn't even have a role restriction for anyone who forgot, but savage is going to have a whole lot more coordination. So for normal mode, you walk up to an NPC, you'll be randomly matched with other players, you can even create parties before you enter, but it's nothing to really stress about. It's something that anyone can really tackle and address and enjoy the content for. As for Savage, you're going to have to gather 48 people beforehand, and big answer to a question I would have had if they didn't address it, the Party Finder will be expanded to allow this. So the Party Finder for this content will be able to fill 48 people. That is good news. I was worried about how they were actually going to do that, if it was going to be jank as hell, but they seem to have thought about that in advance for once, and I'm glad to see it. The NPC you're going to be looking for is Gangosh, not to be confused with the NPC in Gangos, which is what I'm assuming is what they mean, is the NPC is just that name. And you do it outside. You don't do it in Bozja. You do it outside in the overworld. So you're not going to go inside in order to queue. That's what we suspected, but it's good to get confirmation. You will need to clear Castrum Lacus Latori first and all of the Bozjan Southern Front. And then you'll need to have all the story quests done for Save the Queen up to that point. You might want some of the augmented gear from Southern Bozjan Front if you're doing Savage. You really don't need it for normal. And quite frankly, you probably don't really even need it for Savage, given that it's just haste. But we'll see. They do also confirm that Normal and Savage will have different rewards. There are some Savage exclusive rewards, which doesn't surprise me at all, given Baldessian had rewards that were exclusive to it. And as for Savage, there will be a restriction on raising people. More of a restriction than was there for the Baldessian Arsenal. Now in BA, the only way to resurrect people were to proc a certain buff that you had on yourself, a Spirit of the Remembered, a 70% chance to resurrect you, or a healer could sacrifice their life and resurrect somebody else. And what would happen is healers would just chain resurrect sacrifices with Spirit of the Remembered until they got back up, until all of them were back alive, unless you were really unlucky. You could also healer LB3. It wasn't uncommon in some boss fights to hold out for a healer LB3 to get people back up for an easier time after the fact. But here they see that it's going to be more limited than that. Could be none at all. It could be something a little more particular that they haven't really dived into yet. But that's, yeah, don't die. Forehead. Anyway, Savage isn't something you can clear with a half-hearted mindset. Glad to hear it. Battle results will decrease once you wipe. I wonder if that means, what it means by battle results will decrease once you wipe. I'm assuming that means you're not allowed to resurrect mostly during fights, or if your rewards are going to suffer, but you can keep going, or if it's just related to metal. Like, I don't know. It's not specific enough to make me think it's one thing or the other. Rewards from Savage, like the ones you get in Baldessian Arsenal, that you'll be proud of, and this will require some... now, the last time they said something would require some amount of time to get, we got Runner's Augments that cost 500 to 1,000 coins. So, please not again. That's all I gotta say about that one. Emerald Weapon, G-Warrior won't be in the Emerald Weapon trial, but you'll see more of the G-Warrior in the future. The content this time will be serious in nature. I didn't know it wasn't serious before. I'm assuming they don't mean like difficult. They mean like the story is serious. The content is serious. Emerald Weapon will change colors during battle. That doesn't surprise me at all, given the colors in his shoulders, I guess we'll call them, in the original. I'd assume that was going to play some sort of role. There's going to be some new mechanics, some they're experimenting with, and there's also multiple phases. Not that that's a surprise to anyone. No matter how you try to explain it, you'll find that those words can be found in a Gundam show. So even though we won't be piloting the G-Warrior, Emerald Weapon's going to be very Gundam-esque. They said they're going to try to control themselves, not overdo it, but if you're a mecha fan, you'll have a good time. All right. Other than that, the rewards will be the same as we usually expect. Now for the most disappointing part. And I wouldn't normally say that, but I've already read this ahead of time, so I know what it says. 24 new Blue Mage spells will be added. Interesting effects and boss spells will be included. There's going to be new boss spells, but with the changes they made last time to learning spells, really just group up with a party of all Blue Mages and quickly learn it, and you shouldn't have much an issue at all. Now here's the part I don't like. Level cap will be 70, and though yes, ultimate content is in Stormblood, Blue Mages will not be able to do ultimate. Blue Mage is created as a job that easily breaks the balance, and they cannot risk mechanics in Ultimate being ignored or skipped. They are afraid that doing so will attract the rage of those who have cleared it. Now, as somebody who has cleared Ultimate, someone who is very much looking forward to Blue Mage Ultimate, I do agree with this to a degree. I agree that Blue Mage, in regards to the traditional rewards that come from Ultimate, you probably don't want people going in and diamond-backing entire phases, which is exactly what would have happened. At least with Blue Ka. Blue Wu still wouldn't have been possible, even with Blue Mage's brokenness without limit breaks, most likely. That being said, I was very much looking forward to Blue Mage Ultimate because I like problem solving, how to do mechanics with Blue Mage when you have no, like, you can't say, oh, well, it's always a tanky healer or DPS, or, oh, both the healers normally do this, or all the range do this. It's a little bit more dynamic, it's a little bit more fun, and I hope they kind of look back on this and kind of change their mind on it at some point. I don't think they will, but I hope that they do at some point. If you're able to section off Blue Mages being able to get the traditional rewards being the preferred method for obtaining the main achievements by making it so you cannot obtain the base achievements or the base weapons by using Blue Mage, I think it's very reasonable to do. And I think that's something they haven't perfected yet with Blue Mage. The same goes with Palace of the Dead. I understand they probably don't want them getting Necromancer or Lone Warrior titles because it'd probably be way easier on Blue Mage compared to most other jobs. That being said, I think there's room for those jobs to be able to flourish in those contents if you are able to make changes to it that allow them to pose it as a unique challenge that's only for them. So this was a big disappointment. It means Blue Mage Omega and the new Mass Carnivals will probably be the extent of what I'll be looking to do. And I will enjoy those, but it will be cut a little bit shorter than I expected. Last I checked, Blue Mage was still planned for 0.41, which should be in January. So at the very least, it still shouldn't overlap with Delubrum Reginae. Blue Mage log will also be updated. New rewards from that. New bosses for the Masked Carnival as well. Ishgard Restoration, nothing here that we didn't really know before. We know there's the Crafter's Monument that will be built in place that stands out by the crafters that fulfill all the requirements. And that one's going to be very, very interesting. Monument will only be built once. It will last forever. If you decided that this is the class you want to be when you build your monument, it will stick and it will be forever. So make sure that if you are going for that statue, it's 100% going to be when you want it to be. Because that's going to be a thing. Also, my chat's letting me know that Blue Mage says 0.45 on the website. That, as I recall, is different than what they said in the previous live letter. So that's kind of disappointing here as well. It means Delubrum Reginae will definitely be getting the priority treatment. It does clash a little bit with what they said in the previous live letter. And considering there are other typos in the website, I do wonder if that is one, but probably isn't. Let's see. Emotes as rewards, roleplay to be even more further expanded. Let's see, crafters. You can still contribute spoils even after Ishgard is over, so you can level up jobs, so you don't have to worry about that. We already knew that anyway. Regulations will be the same as the second one. There may be different formats for rankings in the future, meaning that after Ishgard's restored, they're already considering where else they can use the system, because they said there may be different formats for ranking in the future. And acknowledging that this is the final part of Ishgard's restoration, so that's interesting to see. There are requests to implement housing once Ishgard is over. And once the final restoration is done and every restoration is completely done, eventually we'll see what happens. In other words, everyone get to it, or they'll never do it. If a server never finishes it, maybe they never do it. Maybe that's it. That's all there is to it. You're going to be the one everyone hates. That's it. You're the one server, they're like, they're not done. We can't do it. And they're like, and everyone hates you, and now everyone has to come and help you. So that's all there is to it. Let's see. This is just miscellaneous. There are rumors that Forspoken will be the next expansion title since there are news about it being a trademark. He said, nope, you're wrong. So first of all, I don't always trust what Yoshi P says in this regard. But people did look at that trademark, and they noticed that the type of trademark it was more likely to be the official title for whatever... What's they're called? Luminous Studios is working on. It's more likely to be the title for that game than it is to be the title for the expansion for Final Fantasy XIV, after looking more into the actual copyrights that were made on that day. So I won't rule it out for 14. It sounds like a perfect Final Fantasy XIV expansion name, but people have gone and done that additional research. Any chances of a collab with 16 if both sides would allow? Yoshi P, hey, do you want to do this? I do. Obviously, Hiroshi Takai is actually really probably who he has to talk to at that, but I just think it's funny that he says if both sides would allow. Oh, man. He just sits in a room with a mirror and he's like, so what do you think about this? Yoshida thinks 5.4 may be one of the biggest patches for a major update. Yeah, I kind of agree with that assessment. We still don't know how some of this stuff is going to pan out. Obviously, the disappointment with the Blue Mage news and not being able to do Ultimate is a thing that kind of pulls back on it a little bit. But with having a 48-man Savage, still new Blue Mage stuff all together. We, of course, have our new treasure map. We have new ocean fishing routes. We have our Ishgard Restoration, the final tier of it, the monument, the main scenario. There are a lot of things here. So I'll see how I feel about that statement after the fact, however. Sky Steel tools will be updated and enter their final phase. The main tools will have cool effects when you're done. New housing parts, new ocean fishing, triple triad tournaments, the Eastern battle style for Doman Mahjong. The exploration mode for Shadowbringers dungeons, and they're working on bringing it to the rest of the game as well. A new fashion accessory in 5.4 that is not an umbrella or a parasol. New PvP content structure. We are thinking of having a more casual content that can be played by lesser people required. Thank you. I've been asking for just like an 8v8 or a 16v16 mode or something like that for the longest of times. Every mode being 48 to 72 people trying to scale down does not work in the entire game. You need other options. Please, for the love of God, give me, I'm going to use my terms, give me Arathi Basin. Give it to me. I want it. Give me Warsong Gulch. Give me the classics that work and that have proven to work for years and years and years. Just do it, please. New information in February. This is most likely expansion information. They said that this would be something that they would kind of be compiling their canceled FanFest and doing some sort of announcement in February, so that's almost certainly the expansion. We also know that they are planning some sort of digital FanFest tentatively for May. So that is something to look forward to as well. So, and they're just looking forward to the rest of the year. I can't scroll down anymore, so all you can see is they are thinking of bringing 14 one step higher and bigger next year. That sounds to me like a next-gen console announcement, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it hit the Xbox, the new Xbox as well. Finally, it's been a joke for so many years, but it's got to happen. Like, it doesn't have to happen, but it's likely to happen eventually. So maybe with the next generation of consoles, it'll finally be the time to actually do it. But anyway, those cover the summaries of these interviews with the various websites, such as 4Gamer and Famitsu. The blog that's at the top of this in the 14 Discord has all of the original sources posted, so you can always go to that. Should you really want to check them out, double check translations. If you are someone who is fluid, who can read, then be sure to go do that. That information is always welcome. But thank you again to Aluna Minori for the translations over on the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. For those watching live on Twitch, for those who are catching it later on YouTube, thank you. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned because we will have a live letter video on Friday. I think that goes without saying. We'll also have State of the Realm this Friday on the live letter, so you get a double dose of discussion on